the Great Brook podcast. We're finally here.
Yes.
Delighted. I'm going to go ahead and just review a little bit about how we met, so that's there within the podcast. But I think we've been working together since November of 2020.
20?
Yeah, November of 2020. That's close on to 2 years.
Right.
Yeah. So a little background. I am in a job where I go from workplace to workplace, delivering seminars, helping people understand how to best communicate with one another, understand how their personality is impacting how others see them. We use the language of insights discovery, which puts personality into color energy orders. And I've been doing that as a private consultant since 2010. So in maybe 2017-ish, I happened upon the workplace where Tanya was, and that's how we met. I had come there to deliver a workshop, and I did, and she was helping me out as I got in, and she attended the workshop. And then afterwards, was talking about the work that I did, and I knew, and I'm using the third person she, but we're sitting right here, I knew you were interested in doing this kind of work, doing the insights work, and maybe doing some independent consulting, because you'd asked me about that after the program. And I flat out I'm always happy to hear that someone's interested in doing that independently, and I always say, when you're ready to be independent, go ahead and contact me. But the next thing I asked was, I said, Tanya, I want to use this language of personality to help dive into the language of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I would want you to help with that if you would ever join this. And the reason I'm asking, and I don't know if I said it so much at the time, was it's the color of your skin that made me want to say, come join me in this exercise. And so I'll leave it to you to explain, so how did you end up being ready to do independent work yourself and getting back in touch with me like you did?
Well, Maura, it's good that you said that you approached me as far as the color of my skin, but to be honest, you didn't say that. What you said was,
thank you.
We need you out there.
Yeah.
And I do believe that is the reason why I joined, because I realized that insights and talking about perceptions, bias, and just the human behavior, how much it was impacting the workplace itself.
Yeah.
So let's go back to when we met at the workshop at my previous company. And I was assisting you with getting everything together. I had a chance to already go through the profile, looking at my own, just kind of being excited about the fact that, most of this information is so true. And I'm like, I think everybody should have a profile.
Yeah.
But not only that, I realized that in the workplace that I was in, we were missing a lot of people. It was like you look around at the table and there was a lot of let's say either in color or handicap or just different diverse people were not available. And I just felt like we needed more. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a part of that build, helping to groom biotech definitely in a different way, as well as I just felt I wanted to be a part of anything that helps our communities excel in the STEM science place of learning, as well as in the workplace. And I just wanted to also show up for not only my Black people, just those underrepresented people out there, to let them know that there is a place for you here within biotech, but not only in biotech, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
Yeah.
And how do we really start to groom a culture of more talent in this area?
Yeah.
So I was so excited that not only we talked that day, and then the pandemic happened.
Yes.
And so you had put out a flyer about a workshop that you were having on how to navigate through this new style of working. I believe like a hybrid workplace event you were doing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I want to be a part of that, because I'm one of those people who has been affected by the pandemic, and I need to, make sure that I navigate myself through these new work styles. So in joining your workshop, I didn't something happened, but bottom line, you and I connected.
Yeah. Well, I remembered that you were interested in the work, and I'm glad you mentioned biotech. I should have said that at the beginning. Biotech and life sciences are the largest part of my client organizations, and that's where I came from before consulting. I was in a biotech organization.
Yes.
Yeah, but I was happy to see you again because I totally remembered our conversation.
Exactly.
And
I was surprised that you had remembered.
Well, yeah, you're a little hard to forget. But.
Right. Yep. And so when you mentioned, you said, well, Tanya, do you remember our conversation? And I was like, oh, yes, I remember that conversation. And she was like, well, I think it's time. And I was like, you're right. And by then, George Floyd situation had happened.
Yeah.
We had all these protests and this, just world upheaval around race and just around, just different topics where we felt that D.E.I.B, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, was showing its face. We needed to talk about it. We really needed to get into what that really means for us in the workplace, especially since we have been experiencing situations, you being in human resources, being your background besides the insights, I felt like we cannot continue to put the onus on human resources because then there's that conflict of interest there.
Yeah.
So how do we handle or talk about these subjects or this matter, and how do we move forward? How do we help our society move forward?
Yeah, how do we grasp this moment?
I
don't know why Trayvon Martin didn't spark it, or anyone who's been lynched, murdered, or otherwise abused before him, but George Floyd did it. Let's roll with it. And I really wanted to make that a part of the conversation. And I did not want to do it as a white woman alone. And you and I have talked about that, and that's where I said, okay, well, I can do this now if I invite Tanya to join me.
Right.
But we've talked about that as well, because it is okay for a white woman alone to talk about the importance of amplifying Black voices. I didn't necessarily need to wait for you, but I'm
glad you did, because, the funny thing was that even though, like you said, it should have happened before with some of the other situations, and it's really amazing that it took something like that for many folks to see.
Yeah.
I would say for me, one of the biggest things was that not only we talk about it, but I realized that we had for so long swept so many things under the rug.
Indeed.
Or, we tucked it. We didn't want to deal with it. You know, when I started getting all the calls about, hey, can I speak to you on certain subjects? And it was, like you said, there's a lot of white women in the human resources area, and many had just didn't know where to go. How do I deal with this now? I have my CEOs and my top executive leaderships asking me to put a program together, and there was still this I would say delay in what do we do?
Right.
Because I don't think many knew what to do, because it's like, is that really the real issue, right?
Yes.
Or is that the only issue?
Yeah, and is it just so often in corporate life we say, let's grab a program and sprinkle it on it like it's pixie dust. I get that situation when I get asked for a basic conversation, insights in how personalities interact and all the rest of it. Like, I dive in and ask the teams, what's going on here that you need this, and let's make sure we're using the tool itself to dive in and solve the problem, as opposed to using the tool like pixie dust. And I feel like some of the requests that you're getting are, okay, well, let's have Tanya come in and work some Black lady magic telling us all how to not be racist. And it's so much more than that. There is just so much deeper that you and I have been having a good time discussing. Like just the idea of, could I have done that alone, or did I have to find a willing Black person? Because I was willing to put myself out there. Every Black person, all three of them, that had approached me after a workshop and said, I'd be interested in doing this sometime, because people do it. It's fun work and they want to do it. If they were Black, I said, well, I do want to add the diversity overlay. And I had a couple of them say, I don't want to do that. And these were Black people saying, and it's not that they didn't want to do the work, but just as you've shared with me, if they're an accountant, they want to come to the company and be the accountant. Mm-hmm. They don't want to be the quote-unquote Black accountant. Mm-hmm. They're willing to sit on the committees and celebrate diversity, but what they want to be known as is, I'm the genius with the numbers. Yeah, I happen to be Black, but they didn't want to be ones amplifying that. They wanted to amplify the idea of personality type, but not necessarily having to be the Black person speaking for Black people. And I don't mean that in anything negative against them.
Right, because sometimes if it comes in as if, okay, I'm the Black person representing, am I representing as a token? I'm qualified. I didn't get here by mistake.
Yeah.
I did the work. Mm-hmm. I am best qualified for this role. Right. I do my job. Yeah. So I don't want to be a color number. I want to be, basically I'm Tanya. I'm one of your co-workers or colleagues, associates. We work together, and this is my role, and that's your role.
Right.
And we want to have respect for each other's roles, no matter our color.
Right.
And I like that you mentioned that you had also spoken to other folks before me. And what interested me the most was the fact that I just felt like we were not digging deeper or deep in a lot of the subject matter, right? A lot of the content, even from my own experiences in big pharma, small pharma, they send you a little disc or something and say, watch this. It may be about unconscious bias. And then that's it. Now we've had bias training. Really? No, we have not. First of all, you don't even know if I really watched that video. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But even if I watched the video and I absorbed the information, how I process is not the same way that everybody else's process. Yeah. And because our experiences, right? And there's other things that comes into play to determine how I actually comprehended that information that my let's say L&D or Learning and Development Department sent out and said, you guys need to take this, you need to have it done by a certain day. And then now I have this certificate that says that I know about bias and I know nothing about it. Yeah. Not really. Yeah. I know it on the surface. And I just felt like what needed to happen at this point is, first of all, we have to get bold. Mm-hmm. We have to get bold at this point. We have to stand up and speak our truth. Yeah. And that's your truth as well. Yeah. Your truth, my truth, together brings out the real truth, right? Yeah. I cannot go and work and just do the work alone. I need you as well to get my job done.
Right.
I'm not in this by myself.
Right.
And because I'm not in it by myself, it takes all of us.
Yeah.
And I what had been happening for me is that I realized that oftentimes when a situation comes up in the workplace, it's thrown maybe to HR or thrown to, another talent acquisition person or something for them to deal with. Okay, so now let's put in a buzzword within your recruiting to try to bring in, say, a more diverse pool of people. That's not really working either, right?
Well, we bring them in, but do we create spaces where we can sit and talk about things that are, I don't know if embarrassing is the right word, but like for me, it is hard for me to even say, well, Tanya, I did ask you to do this because you're Black.
Right.
Well, and do I have to say that? Well, yeah, in this case I do because
in these sensitive times, Maura, these are very sensitive times, so you have to be very politically correct, or you really have to make your words have to mean something. So we can't say things like, Tanya, I want you because you're Black. Now you're having like a microaggressive moment.
Oh, man.
Right?
I'm just trying to be honest.
Exactly. And, but that's kind of where we've gotten to. We've gotten to, we're in really such a, I would say, in my opinion, a more like a literal society, in the sense that, you have to be so politically correct on what you say and what you do. Yeah. There's like no room for error.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you cancel.
Yeah.
Or we don't want to see you. We don't want to talk to you. Yeah. When really what we need to do is take even if it's an error.
Right.
And we need to then help bring that error to a solution.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to now find out, why did you say that in that way?
Right.
What happened?
Yeah.
Or what do you need? And I just felt like, Maura, you bleed blood, I bleed blood, the same blood.
Yeah.
I'm not looking at the color of your skin.
Yeah.
As long as you respect me, I respect you. I
Right.
respect your work.
Right.
You respect my work.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what color you are.
Yeah.
It shouldn't matter what color I am.
Yeah.
But if we're finding that we're having issues within our workplace, you and I can fix that. We can work together. It shouldn't be that only this person can fix it, or only
like
that
you
person.
and I have to call HR or whatever.
Right.
We don't.
Because what happens if this is something that's an HR matter? Most people don't want to deal with something that's an HR matter.
Right.
Okay, now you're getting on my bad side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
but we need the skills to have the
need-
comfort level to sit and talk to one another that's beyond
Right.
just the
And
bias video.
Yes, it becomes a conflict of interest. You're working for the company to make sure you bring in the best talent. You're working for the employees to make sure that they have their benefits and needs.
Yeah.
But then we want you to also solve our problems.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that the onus should fall on HR to solve all the problems.
Right.
Really,
Right.
it's things that we all can do and should do, because it all boils down to, one, our human behaviors,
Yep.
our perceptions,
Yes.
our biases.
Yep.
And we all have them.
Yeah.
This is not something unique to me being black.
Yeah.
It's not something unique to you being white.
Yeah.
This is just who we are.
This is humans, and that's where we come back to.
And that's what we come back to.
Yeah. And that's where we're wanting to take our podcast into those deeper, harder things. I don't want to gloss over and say, yes, we're all human and it's all la-di-da, because there's things we need to talk about.
Definitely.
So, and I know you've been talking with a lot of people. What are your key things that you want to make sure we cover?
Well, there's a few things, but one of the most current things that I want to deal with is this thing between implicit bias versus racism.
Huh.
And the reason why I want to do implicit bias versus racism is because there's a situation going on. A guy, Ryan Coogler, he's the director of Black Panther, the movie Black Panther. Okay.
Yeah.
Not the organization.
Okay.
Maura. Okay. So I'm not getting political here. But Ryan Coogler, the director of the Black Panther movie, is filming Black Panther 2 in Atlanta. Went to his bank to withdraw some funds. Because he wanted to do it discreetly, he wrote a note asking the teller to count the money somewhere else and then just bring it to him. He's withdrawing from his account. He had his identification, he had his bank card, he had everything he needed. And the teller, and she's actually a black woman, actually panicked and pushed the panic button to the point of police authority coming in to the bank. He was handcuffed.
Wow.
They had to have a discussion with him. Certain things unfolded. I do not know all the details. I'll be perfectly honest. That was not fair.
Yeah.
But it is in the news right now. And someone was mentioning, well, this is racist. But then someone said, but the girl is black. And that's true. So now, is this racist or is this implicit bias? I mean, it's clearly implicit bias. But I think we have gotten to the point where if anybody say anything to a black person and stop them because they're unsure, that they're automatically racist, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of want to dig a little deeper into, defining implicit bias, when it really exists, and how do we move our society beyond just thinking that because you spoke to a black person or you stopped them for something that was questionable. I mean, because, they raised a question. He wrote a note. Should he have written a note, or should he have just said to the lady, I'm Ryan Coogler. Maybe he could have gave her more information of who he is. Yeah. And maybe then, but then he don't want her to be like, oh, this is a Black Panther.
That's exactly what he's...
Director. This is
Yes.
director of, Wakanda Forever. So who doesn't respect that? So of course he does not want that to happen.
Yeah.
And in that, but it could have been a different discussion.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. Another thing is the Crown Act. Many folks don't realize that the Crown Act...
I never heard of the Crown Act
Crown
until
Act was
you started talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Create a respectful and open workplace for natural hair. Now, many people doesn't realize how important this really is. And this is something that's very important. It's been important for a long time. And I think what has happened is most of the African American people have conformed, right?
Yeah.
So we're used to cutting our hair, grooming ourselves, doing whatever is necessary to be in a workplace. So normally you wouldn't just see it. It's not something you even, like you mentioned, as an HR representative,
right.
You've never had to deal with that.
No.
However, I already know that I've been on an interview in my braids and realized that I was asked that, well, if we hire you, will you have a problem taking your braids out your hair,
Yeah.
and that has happened to even recently where we have, attorneys, students, law attorneys who have went to school for years, wearing their locks or wearing their natural hair, and now they're in the courthouse, and you have judges and sheriffs and bailiffs asking them, do they belong there, because they're looking at their hair, and here I'm the leading attorney right here, or I'm the the district attorney, or I'm the I'm in a position in which, why are you asking me that question?
Right.
I'm qualified.
Yeah.
I do my job. I belong here.
Yeah.
So why does the color of, or rather my hairstyle, why does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah. And so an actual act coming up on that.
And actually it's only about 14 states now that has a law, and the law just says that you can't discriminate against these people, right?
Yeah.
There's no discrimination. It gives states or employees just something that if you discriminate, I have something I can report this as an offense. Yeah. Especially if it's an offense that prevents you from getting somewhere. I've done all my studying. I've done everything necessary. And the only thing that's keeping me from being hired is my hairstyle. That's not okay. And especially not in 2022, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand there was a time, and there's some professionalism. Don't get me wrong. There's places that maybe we should. I'm not sure, though, because I still feel that as long as I'm clean, appropriate, and I present myself professionally, respectfully, and I demonstrate that I have the abilities to do the job that is being presented.
Yeah.
Why am I being held back?
Because of your hair. Yeah. I mean, I understand the asking for a standard of dress, but for example, you and I right now are in professional dress, and I think we both look very professional. But I want to unpack what you're saying from a standpoint of white people hearing it, right? Because we laughed when you said is Ryan Coogler? Is the director of the movie Black Panther. Because the first time you said to me, well, he's the Black Panther director, I thought, oh, what are the Black Panthers up to this day?
Right.
Gee, do they even still exist? Now, would I have wondered that had a white person told me the same thing? Gee, I don't know, but that's where my mind went, and I told you. And we had a laugh about that. You're like, oh, man, you thought I was talking about the Black Panthers. No, I meant the movie Black Panther. But just that whole piece escaped me. The other piece that was interesting to me is on the Crown Act. I'm saying I've never encountered it, and I have not with any employee with African hair or any other kind of hair, but that's because I've been working in a workplace that everyone wears a lab coat, and if they're in a sterile environment, they're putting a bonnet on their head, so it doesn't come up. And so I dismiss it, not negatively, but because it's outside my lived experience, which doesn't mean it isn't an issue for you. And how does your son wear his hair? And how do your grandkids wear their hair? Right. It is bigger than just me being able to say, well, I really haven't seen it, but I think it's a good idea. Right. And yet I feel like what I bring to it does not have the intensity of what you bring to it. And
I think, and this is why this podcast is going to be good, is because I believe a lot of it has to do with also communication, just basically, like you said, and the fact that certain things cross over, right? I did say the Black Panther, the director of Black Panther.
Thank you.
And when I said director, I mean, I would have kind of thought that you might would have thought about the movie, but then I had to really think. No,
director is a professional role. I'm in HR. You tell me it's a director.
You're talking about the real Black Panther organization, and that's something I do know about. So for me, I should have even been a little more clear and clarified that, right?
I'm talking about the movie.
Yes, because I could talk about the Black Panthers too, especially coming from Oakland, California, born and raised, right? Yeah. So there's history there.
Yeah.
However, yes, this particular situation is of Ryan Coogler, the Black Panther director.
Yeah, that was fascinating. That he just didn't want a big fuss made while she counted out. And you said the amount was like $15,000.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of cash.
That's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to be,
he didn't want a big fuss right in front of the teller.
And he's just there to film part 2 of, Black Panther movie 2, right?
Yeah.
The sequel.
Yeah.
And that's not where he lives. He lives, I think he's still in California, somewhere, northern or southern. I'm not sure exactly where he is. I know he's from Northern California.
I know, but had he been the white director of Black Panther
or
movie,
a white person, period.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Whether
would
he's
that
a director
have happened?
or not, with that kind of money, that would have been assumed he has that kind of money, and he just wants us.
Yeah, and just write a note.
They probably would have set him up with a personal banker, right? With that type of withdrawal, and they would have had the personal banker.
Right, just call someone over to do it. But
so
just fascinating. I mean, there's tons that we could unpack, and that's where I want to go with this. I mean,
exactly.
I'm not. I mean, maybe he'll be on our podcast one time.
Maybe.
What we're looking for, though, is people who are listening to this who say, "Oh, that resonates. That's just like what happened to me," and we want to invite them to be our guests and to go deep with us and help us to go deep
and not be afraid, because there's a lot of situations, I think about, oh man, now this is not one I necessarily want to talk about on this podcast, but when folks get to saying when you can use a particular word, you can use this word, but this person can't use this word.
Oh yeah.
Either, there's so many different ways that I think that either, through communication and our behaviors, we can learn to talk things through and not just dismiss it as something irrelevant or something that doesn't exist. Because we all have different learned experiences. We come from different environments,
right?
And we see things differently. And a lot of times that dictates how we behave.
Yeah.
And because of that, it also happens in our workplace. A lot of people think folks come to work and we just come to work and all we're going to do is do our job. Yeah. But we bring our whole self to work.
We're humans.
We're humans.
We're humans first. And I know as an HR person, I love saying your workplace is a family. And I hate saying your workplace is a family because your family can't fire you. Your workplace can.
Exactly.
But as humans, we form these bonds. We start working together and we have them in common. And it's going to happen whether you expect it to or not. You put humans together and this happens.
Exactly.
But then we get caught up in but how do we go really deep and really talk, because we have this crazy racist history right back to 1619 where people thought we could make other people our slaves. I mean, that's there. We don't have to own it. And maybe I'm rolling into white guilt here, and you and I talked about that, and I'm like, I'm not even sure what white guilt is, but it's like, do I think I need to own all of racism and fix it?
And you see, we're having a lot of problems with that. Do I own this? Is that your ownership? Should you?
Yeah.
And
using the term own.
Right.
It's bad.
Oh, right. Exactly.
Right.
At this point, if we're talking, right?
Yeah.
So we have to find a middle ground, because it's really all of our responsibility to fix it, right?
Yeah.
We all should fix it. I do believe that there are certain elements that maybe white folks or, those of the European, Caucasian race. I do believe there's things that they are solely responsible for. And a lot of it is just even admitting that it even happened.
Yes.
Just or admitting to the privileges that they have because they were not part of or experienced it.
I'm going to push back on the word admitting, because then that is beginning to sound like I did something wrong. I grew up with this color skin. It protected me in a way I never understood.
Or how about acknowledging? Then?
Acknowledging.
We won't admit,
I like that.
But I will acknowledge that
I
this
will
happened.
acknowledge that this happened.
You're
and
right.
I didn't even know it was happening.
Exactly.
It's like that cartoon that we use when we're teaching insights together with the two birds, and they're talking to one another, and it just the birds look exactly the same, saying, "Do you think the owl is a predator?" And the other says, "No, owl's not a predator."
And that's just like. Okay, and so we're going to be wrapping up, but one of the other topics I hope that we can also get into would be cultural fit. And that happens a lot, especially within hiring in the workplace. So I do think that we want to talk about, is it time to leave that term alone? And where does it really fit? Because if we're building diverse populations, we have to deal with the cultures, right? We have to deal with a variety of them. So I can't see where we're going to have a specific culture other than one of respect. One of accountability, one of, we do want the diverse pool, but diverse in thought, not just because you are of one race over another, one gender over another, or one, let's say you're not disabled versus disabled. There's many things that we can use within that diverse area. I just want to make sure cultural fit is addressed within the podcast, because we have to come to a place where we realize that we cannot build one type of culture if we're trying to be a diverse group.
Yeah, our culture is going to change with every new hire.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I love the way you always come back to belonging.
And belonging.
We all have to belong.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want to be anywhere that I don't feel like I belong there.
Right.
And I want to be included. Yeah. So, we really need to build more inclusive and belonging environments within the workplace.
I think we can do it. I love how we've been doing it with our training.
If we talk through a lot of these tough topics and get deep, we have to be a little bold. We have to we can't be afraid.
Yeah.
We can do it.
Yeah.
What you think, Maura?
I think we're ready to roll.
I think we are, too.
I'm happy to have you, and I hope we get some great guests.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Maura Snow. My co-host, Tanya Middleton, and I would like to thank you for listening to this episode of the Great Brook Podcast. Our producer and editor is Corrine Joseph. Special thank you to Acton TV for use of their studio located in Acton, Massachusetts. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also check us out on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram @Great Brook Podcast.